Tom Shannon, but when I'm not Tom Shannon, I'm Teapot, a cartoonist. And Teapot really likes architecture. Here's a room shoe. When your shoe is lined with deep pile carpet, the whole world is covered with deep pile carpet. Here's a Venn house, a study for Venn house. This is the nice-ass pavilion. Tuning fork factory. It's a little confusing out in the production area. Here's a high-rise tent for Midtown Manhattan. This is so you can have all the inconvenience of camping in one convenient Midtown location. Skyscraper. And here's the headquarters for A-Hole Corporation, everybody's favorite client. And then the prestigious Guggenheim expansion project. So the Teapot is sort of the crash pad for the more zany ideas that go through my head. But I have all kinds of other ideas, and some of them are very large-scale ideas that I want to realize one day, and then I'll show you at the end some ideas that have been realized already. So Empire Sphere. When I was a young kid growing up, my neighbors had a reflecting sphere in their garden next door, which really fascinated me. It reflected in the upper hemisphere all the clouds and the birds flying in the sky, and in the lower hemisphere the surrounding garden. So later in life, becoming an artist, I was still fascinated with the idea of a reflecting sphere. So I thought about placing an enormous reflecting sphere, highly polished in Midtown Manhattan, in the highest position, which is, of course, the Empire State Building. So in 1930, the Empire State Building, when it was first built, it was intended to be a 86-story flat-top building. But at the last moment, there was a great movement toward the idea of dirigible transportation. So a mooring tower was built on top of the planned building. 20 years later, in 1950, a television tower was mounted on top of the mooring tower to address the city with television. And then I had the idea in 1980 to put a highly polished, really optically perfect kind of sphere at the top of the mooring tower, which would reflect the entire environment out to the ocean horizon. So you would see the river traffic and the traffic of the city, and the celestial sphere in the upper hemisphere, and all the weather patterns, and in the lower hemisphere, just all the activity of the city. And so it would be a very dense, condensed microcosm of the city that would be in a prominent position and available to everybody. So kind of a public art gift to the city. And thinking about taking this sphere and then setting it airborne, I thought about another kind of airship, a spherical airship. This would be an airship filled with helium, with an onboard power generator and electric propulsion system. And it would be about 110 feet in diameter, which is the diameter that's required to lift it. So the power generation system would be up here. There would be a control room here, and then there's a gondola that is retractable, and then there are retractable legs. So I went to Aero Environment, the aeronautics firm that was founded by Paul McCready, and they did a feasibility study, and together we worked out a system for making a feasible version of this, where the resolution of the screen, of the computer's surface of it, which is made of about 60 million light-emitting diodes, red, blue, and green. These diodes would make a resolution equivalent to a laptop computer at a distance of about 50 meters. It weighs about 20 tons. And the propulsion system, which is composed of a myriad small propellers that are reversible electric propellers. And the idea of making them small is so they would become virtually invisible and not obscure the image in any way. But it also turned out to be a really great way of making a non-aerodynamic shape like a sphere move through space as though it were aerodynamic by controlling the boundary layer, the air, which is about a foot thick, that's around the surface of a sphere that would create drag and turbulence, but this organizes the air so you have a nice flow. So this sphere would have onboard cameras, and so it could reflect, it could create pictures of its environment and play them back. And the way I imagine the sphere, the life of the sphere would go flying out in the morning and then perhaps go to a college campus and land on the college green and provide a sort of pedagogical tool for teaching earth sciences and global issues and plate tectonics, that sort of thing during the day in a very dramatic way. And then at night it would have another function. This is a brief video just showing, like, here are two of the spheres. If you had two spheres that were flying off in two different directions, two different cities, then the onboard cameras of each of them could allow a teleconferencing situation. So two populations could be in communication with each other by seeing themselves projected up onto the screen. So this is the simplified version of the interior, the control and media center up for flying the device. And this gondola can retract. Here you're seeing the legs retracting as it's rising into the sky, and then the cameras are seeing the environment, and the cameras on the back side of it are showing on the opposite side what's behind it, so it can camouflage itself to a certain extent. And otherwise it's normally black, the surface, the background. Here's a detail of the propeller system. And so it would come into a city and eventually land in a park or as I say, go from college to college, and be very interactive. So it can see people and then at night, when after all the serious business of education, it's sort of like what we do here, where we have our talk, and then at night we party. So it would be the epicenter for a wild dance party. And thinking about floating things, I thought, well, helium is an excellent but very expensive way of floating things. So if you wanted to float something very large, perhaps a vacuum would be the best floating with something with nothing, because whereas an air bubble will rise in water, a vacuum will rise in air. But to enclose a vacuum, the calculations showed that it had to be a very large kind of object to do it, sort of cloud size or enormous building size. And when I thought about that, I thought about walking on it, and then eventually that evolved into making habitable islands or gardens that could fly in the sky. And this is, the time of this is coming, but it's a ways off. But I imagine it being built using nanotechnology, self-assembling, for instance, a giant diamond surface that could support the water and the landscape, so you'd have a reservoir with you. And this is a transparent reservoir here where people could be swimming and looking down at the ocean below. These things would probably be flying over the ocean, and then people could look up from the ground and see people swimming in the sky. And of course there would always be weather and trouble in paradise. And so that's a project that it's ways off, but increasingly there's new technologies that make it more and more feasible. For instance, the advent of or discovery of graphene, this new material, which is a form of carbon that's one atom thick honeycomb of atoms that can as a surface can contain helium or any even the thinnest atom. It can contain it permanently, and the graphene is extremely tough, and so a couple of layers of it would make a giant. You have giant lifting spheres that would be virtually invisible, that could be held in the upper part of it, or even remotely at a very high altitude using cables that would suspend it, so you could have an upper satellite. And well, this brings us to some materialized works. This is the corners of the world, another beautiful sphere that we all love. And these are the Platonic solids. I've always been fascinated by polyhedrons and great fascination with all the interrelationships of them. Plato, in his book, The Timaeus, assigned each one of the spheres of these polyhedrons to one of the earth elements. The tetrahedron with fire, the octahedron with air, the icosahedron, 20 sides with water, the 12-sided dodecahedron with the cosmos, and then finally the cube with earth. And so I superimposed the symbol of the earth in the earth itself, and here's one corner of it protruding out like the tip of an iceberg. So it's a way of making a large-scale rotating cube in space. And then to determine where these 8 corners would find themselves on the surface of the earth, I made what I call the instrument of coincidence. It's a network of chains with eight links, and these chains can be slid around this globe, and so you can find all kinds of constellations, chance constellations of where these 8 corners might appear. And this is one of the corners of the cube that was installed during an exhibition in Central Park near the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And as you can see, a dog came along and christened it Revenge. So plunging down from the astronomic to the atomic and maybe back up again, is compass moon atom room. These were spheres that have magnets in them, quite strong magnets, and they're suspended in, because the magnets are very strong, they interact one to the other, so the whole array is like one connected molecule. There's a magnetic field that pervades the whole array, and all of them behave like compasses. So all the dark sides of the spheres are facing north, and then taking it into the color realm. This is an installation I installed last year in Tokyo at the Tokyo Broadcasting Headquarters, a new building in the entrance. So this is above the earlier ones that were all ones that you could walk through. And if you rotate one of the spheres, eventually all of the spheres are connected to each other. So and same with this. All the green sides are facing south. Just thinking about photosynthesis and the sun, and as these are all affected by Earth magnetism, they're connected to the Earth, and so it's sort of a bridge between people and the Earth magnetic field, and of course the Earth magnetic field is connected to the solar magnetic field. And the solar magnetic field extends way beyond all the planets and out to the heliopause and beyond. It connects and interacts with the other stars of the solar system. So that it's sort of a stepping stone connection of magnetic fields, that part of the gravitational magnetic interaction of the distribution of matter in the universe. Here's a brief video that shows some of the geometric alignment. It's the arrangement of this is the pattern of atoms in a crystal lattice structure, and like a close packing structure. And when you walk around this, you'll see one color predominating. So you'll say everything will look sort of orange, but as you walk around it, you'll see blue or green, depending on which way you look at it. So various people looking at it from different directions would be in sort of relative states, you know, having slightly different experiences and therefore slightly different moods. So yeah, this shows more clearly the spectrum that's silk screen. This is silk screened color spectrum around it. And then I would like to show you three sculptures which are what I call heavy weightlessness, or heavy weightless sculptures. And these are sculptures that are made of heavy materials like stainless steel. This is polished stainless steel. It weighs a couple of tons. Here it's raining. There are drops of water on the surface, and it can rotate. It's balancing on a point inside the object. There's a ball and socket, and which allows it, and it's right at the center of gravity, just a tiny bit above the center of gravity. So the slightest influence can make it tilt, even though it weighs a couple of tons. Even air currents in the environment can make it, bring it to life and animate the object. And this was set in Sapporo, and at the time of the World Cup, there was a sculpture garden that was surrounding the Sapporo Dome that was built for the World Cup. Here's one that's of a similar nature, but a slightly different technique. It's three elements. This again is a couple of tons. This is in the workshop in Japan, and we're just testing it out. There are some auxiliary weights just to get the balance. Everything eventually is incorporated inside the object. And this was designed, the proportions are really derived of the golden section, which is still very fascinating, and I think as it pervades nature just the way pi does, continues to be a valuable thing to explore. So the ratio of the height to the width of the smaller ellipsoid, the length of the smaller one is equal to the width of the next one, and then the length of the middle one is equal to the width of the large one. So the growth pattern is also the golden section ratio. And here it's installed in front of the major electric company in Osaka on an island in the center. Now, to conclude, I'd like to show you the one I installed just this last summer in Aix-en-Provence. There's a beautiful Chateau Lacoste, it's called. It's a winery, a vineyard that's in one complete valley. It's a gorgeous valley with nothing else but the vineyard. And here we're just starting with some interior shots of the mechanism. So this is an evolved system that allows the object to do many things. This is going through kind of a royal road test in the atelier, so just testing out its limits of motion. And it's here's out in front, just testing. It can move, it can glide sideways, it can actually rise and fall. It's in equilibrium because the weights inside of it are equal to the weight of the surface of it. And I wanted it to resemble water, like a dewdrop, and water, of course, is a motion, an object that very seldom stays still unless it's frozen. So this is the mechanism that we evolved for it. It has a bearing up here, a Bullen socket. This is a part of a lever that runs over a fulcrum right here. This weight right here is equivalent to the weight of the surrounding object. And then this yoke comes down to another bearing that's right here, and that's on an arm where there's another bearing that goes to a shaft here. And then this huge weight compensates for all the weight of the rest of it. And these weights are moving around inside of it, but just like humans have our organs on the inside and not visible, I thought it was preferable not to have the mechanism available to the eye, so you would just see the motion of the outer thing without a juxtaposition of two things. And so the setting for it is most beautiful. There's the vineyard, and then there's the surrounding landscape. You'll find beautiful ancient ruins, Roman ruins. And Tadao Ando, the architect, is doing the landscaping for this. Jean Nouvel has already built the winery and the visitor center. Frank Gehry has the pavilion that was at the Serpentine Gallery in London, and Norman Foster is building a pavilion. So there's a lot of interesting people there. Frank Stella, not Frank Stella, but Richard Serra has installed a large sculpture. James Turrell, Anish Kapoor. So it's going to be quite an interesting destination. There's going to be a sort of a buried hotel, and there'll be a nice restaurant, and you'll be able to drink wine and stay there and just have a nice time visiting in the south of France. It'll be a really nice place. So. The name of it, as I said, it comes from the idea of a dewdrop. And so in the morning, dewdrops will form on the surface of it, little miniature versions of this, and as it forms on the leaves. And it's also derives the name from the fact that it's mounted near a drop. There's a drop in the landscape right there, and you can have a drop of wine, and then dropping all these names, so maybe that's also part of it. So that is kind of wraps it up. Some of the zany ideas, the ideas that are yet to be materialized, and some that have been materialized, and that's the kind of work that I do. So anyway, thank you very much.